Hey, welcome to Write More Light. My name is Sarah L. Gatian. I am the marketing person at the Midwest Writing Center. I'm super happy to have you here with me today. Um, with with my upcoming workshop in mind and the election on the horizon, I thought I would spend just a little bit of your time today talking about how words are effective advocism. That is a combination of activism and advocacy, which I didn't mean to say, but they go hand in hand. They are one and the same in a lot of ways. So I'm not going to give away all of the spoils from my workshop Saturday, but it's something that is near and dear to me as someone who does a lot of advocacy and activism, and as a writer. I think that we spend a lot of time in the writing community talking about writing in a way that is separate from storytelling, which it is not, or should not be. That's a way to leave people out, and I'm not into it. Plus, a lot of organizations out there do storytelling specifically because it's far more accessible and it's where writing came from, right? All story started out verbal. We had it before we had language before we had written language, and I think it's really important to remember our roots in that, particularly when so many writing formats are so dependent on the sounds of language. Poetry, of course, is specifically what I'm talking about here, but that can go in a lot of directions. So for storytelling specifically, I've done a lot of activism events surrounding issues that I care about, talking about my personal experiences, and then throwing in a call to action at the end. That's a really really effective method, right? You want your audience um, to identify with you, to have some empathy, to go through an experience with you, and then you can tell them what to do with those feelings. So that's the nutshell, right? That's me giving away all of the trade secrets there. um, when we use storytelling, a lot of what we're doing, both written and verbally, um, is building empathy, building an experience for our audience, and and that's where the motivation in our audience comes from. We want people to understand a specific experience. We want them to understand the feeling of going through that experience, and then have something to walk away with. We If we don't include that call to action, then we're not really doing anything at all, other than making people sad, probably, or angry. Feelings are great, but we need to have something to do with them. So I would actually say that before you go into any activism with storytelling, you want to know yourself off the bat what your ask is going to be. It's super super important to know what we can do with these feelings, and that's the hardest part too. Once you know what you're going to say, once you know your experience and your the nuts and bolts of your story. So especially if it's oral, you may not have anything written down at all, which makes it a little harder for me. I mean, you can see, you're watching me right now say every fourth word. Which is why I almost did it again, which is why you need to know your story well, which is why when doing verbal storytelling, you really want it to be um, personal and about you, kind of like if you don't lie, you have nothing to remember. um, but that's the truth. Once you know what you're going to say, once you know what you're fighting for, we really need to give our audience something to walk away with, other than um, a desire to do something. You can tell your audience what to do, what the next step is, how to make a difference. That is, I think, the most important part, because otherwise what we're doing is talking, which is great and important, and storytelling is everything. But if we want to do it as activism, if we want to make a difference with our work, we have to do it intentionally, and maybe not. We have to write intentionally. We have to tell a story intentionally. We don't have to sit here and be like, well, the only way that we can make a difference is if we go about it and tell people we're going to make a difference. That's not real. Our favorite pieces of fiction and poetry have made an impact on us, have made a difference to us, whether or not they're overtly political or have an overt message. So that's not to be taken too seriously, depending on the situation. But we do need to write with intention, to know what we're saying, and that's something that I'm going to talk about on Saturday. How have our favorite pieces of writing affected us? And we're going to talk about writing outside of poetry and fiction. We're going to also talk about essays, movies, tweets, songs. There's a whole world of writing out there that isn't necessarily in print or bound. I was gonna just reach for a book, and everything behind me is on craft, so it would be real fake. I've got actually the only book I have behind me that's even fiction is To Kill a Mockingbird, which I think has a pretty overt message in regard to social justice. So also not maybe the most great old cover though, isn't this? This was someone's library book in 1989. I may have digressed just a little bit there. Point being, all great art makes an impact on its audience. But when we have a specific message we want to send, when we have a specific mission, we need to look at it differently. We need to sit down and think about it. Think about impact, think about direction, think about intention in a different way. And obviously, we don't have to be standing on the National Mall giving a speech in order to say this, in order to make, in order to know that what we're doing has a point or will make an impact. A lot of what I do personally, and this is going to sound silly, this is really going to sound silly, but a lot of the activist writing I do is letters to the editor, and that's also the highest number of traffic any of my writing has ever seen. I am published out there in the world, but I have gone to I want to say it was last Thanksgiving, maybe last Christmas. I went to a family event, and my cousin's in-laws stopped me, and they were like, "I saw you in the paper. You wrote that letter to the editor." And I was like, "That's true. That was a month ago, and I don't even know your name, but okay then." I've also received emails. I don't. Somebody, I guess, looked me up afterwards, and thankfully it was nice stuff. But that is the highest amount of traffic that your writing will get if you're not famous. So figuring out how to do an effective letter to the editor is important. But we'll also talk, of course, like I already said, about social media, about songs. There are massive amounts of opportunities out there to make your voice heard, and we're going to talk about how to do that effectively, what the best outlet is for your specific goals or your specific style. Yeah. I also said for today's video I'll talk about my experiences, which I suppose I am a little bit when I just discussed letters to the editor. It was really hard for me in the beginning to do that. There's a real short word limit, and it feels very sterile. Where for oral storytelling, you're sitting there on the fly, and you're there with real people. Or maybe it's 2020 and you're talking to your own reflection in a computer screen, whatever. But it's much more natural to sit there and tell your own story, tell your experience, and and hope that someone understands what you're saying. You know, you're looking them in the eye, and having an experience together. It's I mean, whether or not it's an event, it's an event. Something is happening between people in a room or on a screen. uh, and that's very different and more natural from, you know, sitting down and saying, all right, I've got 200 words to talk about the new parking meters. I just tried to think of something really not controversial to talk about. Here we are. Parking meters. But, you know, whatever issue it is that is near and dear to your heart, there are endless opportunities and different venues and different styles that will fit it best. I got into storytelling, oral storytelling, maybe 5 years ago, and it's a totally different ballgame, but it also, like I have already said, much more natural to me because it is conversational. In 2020, right, when we're all alone in our homes or whatever, it doesn't happen quite so naturally that we go to events and sit in a circle or a room together, but maybe the best outlet for you, for your story, for your advocacy is making a video, you know. That's one of the hardest parts, I think, of storytelling and writing as activism, is figuring out what the best outlet for your work is. So I will do some focus on that. It's also my favorite thing to read. Maybe not my favorite thing to read, but the thing that got me into reading was fiction, right? I would read fiction as escapism, and you grow up and you learn that, like, sci-fi and fantasy started out as social commentary, and you look back at the stuff that you read. Maybe you didn't read sci-fi and fantasy as a child like I did. Jay, that is 100% true. 250 words forces you to be very efficient and intentional with your language. Maybe you didn't read sci-fi and fantasy as a kid like I did, but you grow up, if you are like me, and you learn that these genres started out as social commentary, and it changed the way I thought about it a lot. You know, if I look back at A Wrinkle in Time with this lens of, that was my favorite book as a kid. I read it 8 times, which I know because I told everybody about it. I haven't read it since. I haven't read it as an adult, but you know, you look back at it and you're like, okay, what is L'Engle saying about Camazotz? I believe that's the name of the planet that that they travel to, and she's saying something, right, about this place where everything is the same, and there's this routine, and there is a meter, and they, I don't want to give spoilers. Can you give spoilers for a 40-year-old book? I don't know, 50-year-old book? But I don't want to. And honestly, I haven't thought about it until this moment. I didn't expect to be examining A Wrinkle in Time at any point in my life, but now I'm seeing, like, oh yeah, this is actually a message here about what's happening on Camazotz, and maybe that's something that L'Engle saw creeping into our world here. It's really crazy to me to think about how sci-fi and fantasy started out as social commentary, since for me it was specifically escapism as a kid. But a lot of fiction does that, right? Any realistic fiction, historical fiction exists in a world where things happen, and there is drama, and there is conflict, and not always. I don't want to exclude fiction that breaks those rules, but if something is happening, if there is some kind of conflict, there's some kind of message, right? And I want to be able to talk about that. I know that the work of mine that I've had published out in the world has almost exclusively been nonfiction, usually essay form, and I'm happy to talk about the weird impact that's had on me, right? The people who will contact me, the people who will have something to say about my work, um, has usually been about, oh hey, this is my experience too. So glad I'm not alone, which I think is I'm so excited about and so flattered by, and love hearing. And I think that that counts as impact too. Um, there are so many of us, I think, especially as kids, but even in adulthood, who have felt very much alone. And so seeing something that we identify with makes a big difference. Um, but if we want that impact to be bigger, if we want it to be not just you're not alone, but hey, this exists out in the world, we're going to be able to use that too. I don't want this video to be much longer than it already is. I hope to talk about this extensively with everyone forever. It's my favorite thing is using writing as a tool for social change. I just realized, I think that what I just said was the title of Ms. Liz Lenz's masterclass at our conference this summer. I maybe should bow out and let her do that as the star. But no matter what your form, your favorite form, your favorite medium for your writing, for your storytelling, there's a way to hit home with that, to use it for activism, and to find the audience, and to be effective with your messaging. So obviously go ahead and send us a private message if you want to talk to me or us about this. But also, I'll make a video about it. We're going to be having some members only content sooner or later where you can access our workshops after the fact if you can't be there live. And of course, I will be seeing some of you on Saturday, so we'll talk in depth about it then. One of my favorite things to do when I am studying, and I read a lot as study to be better, to learn how to be a better writer, how to be a better person, how to be a better activist, whatever, is to read pieces that have had an impact and interrogate why. And that doesn't have to be, reading The Jungle and sitting down by and being like, well, the meatpacking industry. That can be one of my favorite things to do is read speeches and essays. I used to keep Strength to Love by Martin Luther King Jr. I thought it was sitting next to me. I used to keep that on my nightstand and read his sermons weekly. There's a lot of different formats, short formats, that have made a big impact. And copying, emulating is a really good method for learning, getting better, and being more effective. So that's my first advice for anybody, of course, ever, is read more. But especially if you want to do something with the same messaging or do something in the same style, look at what's been effective before. So of course, for in conclusion, I would like you to write on your favorite topic. Write on the thing that makes you feel angry or sad or alive in your favorite form. I hope this is easy. I know that when I care a lot about something, I put a lot of pressure on myself. But for a free write, write about your topic, the topic that is your baby, in your favorite format. So the form that comes most naturally to me is letters. Not letters to the editor, but epistolary narrative letters, followed by fiction. And so that's what I'll be doing. I'll be on a topic. I'll be free writing that. I think with the election coming up so soon, there are a lot of hot topics in all of our hearts and on all of our minds right now. So like keep this really low key, really low pressure when you do your free write. It's a really intense time to be alive right now, especially when you care about things that are being debated in the political sphere. So maybe this can do double duty as catharsis. I don't think that writing always has to have the explicit mission of affecting large scale change. Um, the reason I started reading was escapism, but the reason I started writing was catharsis, and I think that is true of a lot of us. So choose that topic. I'm gonna do the full 5 minutes again, and I will see you again in 5 minutes. I know it's awkward sitting in silence with me here, but I promise you are not alone. I am here with you trying to write more light on my favorite topic in my favorite format. Reaching over here to grab a notepad. I moved recently. I'm still kind of moving, and I don't know where my regular notebook is. So bear with me, and I apologize. I just tried to comment so that anybody coming here and seeing silence would know what's going on. But we are in a 5-minute free write with the prompt to write on a topic you're passionate about in your favorite medium, genre, or form. I am attempting fiction. We've got 1 minute and 10 seconds left. Fifteen seconds. God, I gave a 10-second warning and still jumped. So I am a big Back to the Future fan, and yesterday was October 21st. October 21st, 2015 is the date that Marty, Doc, and Jennifer visit in the future, which is obviously not the future anymore. It's been 5 years. So I have yesterday's date in my mind because that's a date that will always stick out for me, having grown up on Back to the Future. And I don't haven't yet written speculative fiction, but that's what's happening here. That's sort of what I did. I said my opening sentence was on October 21st, 2020. Marty, Doc, and Jennifer arrive in Hill Valley, California from writings 1985. I don't know if I'm going to keep working on this. It is very uncomfortable for me to work in this form, and I don't know if I like where it's going, but excuse me. But here I am doing it. Please throw some comments on our page. Let us know what you think, what you're interested in as far as the different things that writing can do. Please keep coming back. And as always, write more light into your life. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I hope to see you next Thursday. In November, I'll go back to twice a week videos and have more guests on again, and I'm really excited to do this more often with you. I miss you all. All of you who hang out with me while I'm looking at myself in a camera. Have a great day. Happy writing, and like I already said, write more light into your life.